together, I've seen a major improvement, which means you're a good student, you go home and you practice, and the thing I like most about you is you think for yourself. And it's amazing how many students just follow what the teacher says without question. And here in America, since we're only concerned with cranking out performers, not musicians, we're creating a mass of people who know little or nothing about music or the structure of music, and that's sad. And if these students would just question and go out and do a little research, I mean, we have this thing called the internet now in which it's filled with lies, but there's plenty of truths out there too. And if you just do a little research, you can find out, And then there's mistakes that have been around in music theory for so long. Like, for instance, the simplest thing, like any book you read, it'll tell you that the staff is made from 5 lines and 4 spaces. And that's just not true. There's 6 spaces. They forget the space above the lines, and they forget about the space below the lines. And that's very important because that gives us 2 more notes to write with. As a composer, I want those 2 spaces. So it's 5 lines and 6 spaces. So there's an example of where 1,000 years ago somebody said it wrong. Someone's picked it up and it's been in every book since. Okay, now the truth is it's 5 lines and 6 spaces, so we have 11 notes to work with. Okay, so that's the first big problem. Another thing is when you have you're a single horn player, you don't have to worry about harmony, right? So, but if you're a keyboard player where you have 2 staffs, you have the treble clef and the bass clef, how do you explain to people why there's an invisible line going down the middle of that thing and you have a big ass space in the middle? There's no way to explain that unless you tell people there's 6 spaces. You see, because you have a space above, then you have line space, you have the bottom line, then you have a space, then you'd have an invisible line, a space, and then the next staff, okay? The reason for the invisible line is the system goes line space, and you can't break that system, right? So if I have a space above the staff below, and I have a space below, what's missing? The line, the invisible line. And it's the only way to explain why C is an invisible line. Also, if you read history, the interesting thing was around the 14th century, they were adding more, and they started out with just 2 lines, and 3, then 5, then 8, 10, 15 lines and spaces, okay, with no break. And what they found is people couldn't read music, because your eye can only absorb so much information, and anything beyond that, your brain just kind of goes mushy. So they did an experiments for about 200 years after that, where they started reducing the number of lines, and they found out that 5 lines and the 6 spaces was about as much as people's brain could hold. So what happened is they wound up splitting the staff, this 15-line staff, they wound up splitting it and taking away the 1 line in the middle, right, to give people's eye a break, so you can see things in smaller, what we call smaller eye bites. And that suddenly explains the staff and how it evolved, okay? Without the history, we wouldn't I don't know of a teacher who explains to any pianist why the C is invisible, because they said it's only got 4 spaces. If the spaces don't matter, then why do we have an invisible C? And so these things do matter. And when you take something out of history, it's almost as if my teacher used to say, it's like cowboys walked around with handles in their hand and then they invented the cup. And we have to remember that the cup was tin, and when you tried to grab a hot cup of coffee, it hurt. Some people invented the handle. The handle came after. It was an afterthought. So to go around thinking that people were holding on to handles and then invented the pot to cook with is kind of ridiculous. So sometimes we have to look at history to put things in perspective. How did this evolve, and why did it evolve that way? Again, in the beginning of writing, they only used clefs. They didn't have a key signature. And the clefs could only go on spaces, on lines. So you see the treble clef here goes on a line. The bass clef goes on a line. If you look at the alto clef, the tenor clef, and all those, they all go on lines. Because you can't put a clef on a space which your eye falls through. Space is a negative thing, so you can't hang a clef on it. So the problem was they could never write music where the first note of the music started on a space. They could only write music that started on lines. So about 250 years into the system, somebody said, we got to figure out a way to move do to the spaces. And they came up with the idea of the key signature. Now, once the major key signatures were invented, that was enough. and they never went on to invent the minor key signature. And so minor, we still use the major key signature. So there again, if you look at history, you see what happened, and why it happened, and why the system never got completed, you see. So again, if students aren't willing to think a little, and they're not willing to read about music history, which I find being one of the most fascinating histories throughout history. I mean, music history cuts across every culture, and cuts across every idea. It cuts across painting, poetry, all the other art forms have been borrowing from music, and music has been stealing from these other art forms. And so if you study the history of music, you can see how human beings' brains evolved in dealing with it. So now here's something else I want to give you to take home. I gave you a couple of these already numbered. What I'm going to do is give you a whole crap load of these. So in the future, you'll have a lot of nice songs here to work on, okay? Now, they're all numbered in green, the melodies, and then I color-coded the chords. So like here, the F minor chord in E flat would be 2, 4, 6, 1. Okay? And then here you've got your B flat 6 chord, which was 5, 7, 2, and instead of 4, because it's a 6, it's really 3. And so if you want to play and improvise, you grab one of these numbers, like say that red one, and then you just play a melody from there to the next one, 7. And then try and play a melody from say 7 to the 4, and from the 4 to the 3, and you go from any one of these numbers to any one of those numbers on the first, and in between, all bets are off. You play whatever you want. So I wanted to give you enough songs with the harmonic analysis that you'll be able to flush some of this stuff.
I ordered that book you read, the vocal book.
Oh yes, yes,
C flat.
yes. The nice thing about those is, of course, it has the words.
Yeah.
And it really helps when you have the words if you're trying to play something, because the words are usually the rhythm.
Mm-hmm.
The rhythm actually comes from the words.
That's beautiful.
What's this?
It's a gift certificate for the.
Oh, for the Sacred Grounds?
Yeah, that's my little tip for your efforts.
Oh, sweet. So you know my favorite place.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. I didn't even know Teddy did this. SacredGrounds.com. Go look him up. Sacred Grounds Cafe. So I'm surprised he doesn't say SF. You know how many Sacred Grounds there are in America? It's about 8. About 8 of them. One in San Diego that also has an open mic on Thursday night, same night as us. In New Mexico, and in Albuquerque, New Mexico, there's one that's pretty good. And they also do poetry and stuff, and they have a lot of different artists come in. They have a really nice setup, and they're also streaming on the internet. There's one in Florida that's also streaming on the internet. Oh, wow. Thank you very much.
So my wife has already got her sights on repeating this little trick, because they're opening up the San Francisco Fine Art Gallery.
Oh, yeah.
In next year. So she's going to want to make another trip.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So she's a dedicated artist. That's really nice. That's nice. I'd like to see some of her stuff sometime. Does she have anything on the internet? Any pictures of her stuff?
Well, sort of. They have these different clubs and everything she belongs to, and they post their artwork for the week. But I can
send me a link.
Yeah.
Yeah, send me a link. Email me a link so I can click on it and go see it. I'd like to see some of her art, and maybe we'll get to meet her next time.
Yeah, I think she'll be feeling better.
Yeah, I used to. I actually studied art in New York from a guy named Nicolaides, who wrote a book called The Natural Way to Draw, which is also where I got my name from. But great teacher Nicolaides was, brilliant. Created the Art Institute, New York Art Institute. Actually, it was quite brilliant. But I was a kid back in the 50s. I was also in Chicago studying improvisation theater from a woman named Viola Spolin, who created improv theater in America. It was at 67. It's go here to 67. Amazing Grace. So let's start with a warm-up with our long tones.
So I've just been, this weekend I was just practicing with the fingers.
Yes, keeping them nice and...
Saxophone group.
Yeah, and it was Brian Girardi.
And Duran.
Huh?
Well, it turns out I had purchased an ebony wood soprano mouthpiece from her.
Oh.
She sold one used on Craigslist.
Oh, wow.
And so I went up to her and told her.
That was nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy that sits in with the glasses, his name is Brian Girardi. He's a...
The guitar player?
No, another sax player.
Oh, he wasn't playing.
What a shame, because he's one of the best saxes. He plays both. He plays alto and tenor, and he switches between them quite fluidly. And usually people don't. They're good on one and not the other. You know what I mean? But Brian's really good on both, and he can fluidly move between the two. Quite brilliant. I think he tends to play too many chromatic scales, though. He once people get into this chromatic scale thing, they use it too much. I like when somebody just plays a simple melody that's kind of interesting to your ear, and then they go off on the deep end. But to just play up and down all the time and say, hey, it's jazz, I think it's kind of like you're just showing off. So let's start with our G scale, and just start with a nice long tone of about 60. Now the next one, I'm just a little bit softer. Next one. Next one for. Yes. Next one. Some people flabby when they get down. You're getting good breath control. Okay, so let's try going 1, 2, 3, doing that exercise all the way up. Okay. So we're just going up. 1, 2,
okay,
2, 3,
okay,
3, 4, 4. Ready? 1, 2, ready to play. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 1. Now backwards. 1, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, to Amazing Grace, where we go. And then it's just a matter of playing this enough until you smooth it out.
Right.
You got all the notes. Another thing you want to do when you play that is work on starting soft and getting loud and then soft again at some point where you think this music should peak. Right? So you don't do it all in, you know, it's the same breath, yeah. Okay, so now, oh, it's Saints, all right? So let's just move on through here. Let's see. Brother John. Are you sleeping? Are you sleeping, Brother John? Brother John, then here it's Tarzan, Tarzan, drum, drum. Morning bells are ringing, Tarzan, Tarzan, drum. Morning bells are ringing. Got it. Okay, let's do it again. You ready?
Start from the beginning?
Yes. And that was all just one chord, by the way. You see it had a one chord and then there didn't show any more. Because that's actually a one chord song.
You know, I'd like to just, I think I was just looking at this. And, you know, one of the things, I mean, you know, this is simple for you, but, for example, like right here, you know, sometimes in music, there's one note and they label the label the chord and say, well, gee, how do they do that? How do they know that? For example, like right here, why does this is number 2, and why is that labeled a 5 chord?
One chord came before it, okay, and 2, one chord has a 1, 3, and a 5 in it, and you could actually add a 6 to that as well. Those will all those notes will harmonize with a 1 chord, but a 2 chord needs another chord, and the 2 needs another chord, the 4 needs another chord, and the 7 needs another chord, and the 2 and the 7 only harmonize with a 5 chord because they're the only ones that have that number in it. A 5 chord is spelled 5, 5, 7, 2, and 4.
But you see, the thing is that's the number 2 note in the scale.
Yes, I know that, and that's why we're playing again. We're playing a 5 chord because
because a 5 chord.
Just a second. Okay.
Would be D.
The thing about the chords is the only reason there's 3 chords and not more necessary is because each of those chords have 3 notes in them, and between the 3 chords you'll get all 7 notes of the scale. A good way to see this is kind of like this. Let's see if I can do it in G.
Well, here, right here.
Yeah. So here's the G chord. This is the 1 chord. It's right. And if you look at it numerically, this is 1, this is 3, and this is the number 5. You see, there's no 2 in it, right?
Right.
The next thing is the 5 chord. Now the 5 chord is built on the 5th of the 1 chord. So we start here with 5, then we go up to the next space, or next line in this case, and then we go up to the next line, because they must all be thirds.
Okay, so that gets the A.
So now what I do is here I have 5, but here's the number 7, right? And here's the number 2. So there's your A. And if I were to make this a 5-7 chord, adding the 7th is adding another note. So I would put this up here, and now this is a 4. So now a 5 chord is spelled 5-7-2, but a 5-7 chord is spelled 5-7-2-4, just like this is spelled 1-3-5. Now, the next thing they do is, this is called the tonic, this is called the dominant chord, because we're taking the 5 and building a new chord on top. So it's over, looking down, right? I always tell people this is the king and that's the queen, and we all know who's really in charge of the house. Okay, the dominant chord determines what the king's going to be up to at any particular. No matter how much they think they're in charge, she's the one that determines what goes on. Okay. Now, if we want to build what's called a subdominant relationship, then what we do is we take the number 1, which is very important, and we make it act like it's the 5 of something. So if I make this the 5 of something, that means I'm going to go down. So I'm going to go like this, and wind up with a 6, and then I'm going to go below, like that, and wind up with a 4. Now what I have here is a 4 chord. 4, 6, 1. These are the 3 chords in their relationship. So now let's take a look and see what happens if we have a 1 in both the 1 chord and the 4 chord. So there are 2 notes, 2 chords, the 1 chord and the 4 chord, that note can be harmonized with. The next note would be 2, and you'll see we have one here in the 5 chord. There's a 2 in the 5 chord. You won't see it anywhere else. So 2 has to be harmonized with a 5 chord. The next step of the scale would be 3, and we have 3 in only the 1 chord. So 3 can usually only be harmonized with a 1 chord. 4 is the next step of the scale, and you'll see in a 4 chord, it's the root of a 4 chord, but it's also the top of a 5-7 chord. So the number 4 can be harmonized with either a 4 chord or a 5 chord. And again, it depends on your ear or what you're doing, the beginning of something or the end of something. So the number 4 can be done with a 4 chord normally and a 5-7 chord. If I didn't have the 7th, there wouldn't be a 4 there, and I'd only be able to harmonize it with that. So the fact that we're making that a 7th chord with 4 notes in it gives us this ability to have 2 different things. Now the next note is going to be the note 5, and you'll see there are 2 things. There's the 1 chord has the 5 in it, and the 5 chord has the 5 in it. So again, this chord can be harmonized with either a 1 chord or a 5 chord. And then the next note will be 6. And you'll see that the 6 is in the 4 chord. So the 6 can be harmonized with the 4 chord. Then you wind up with the 7 chord, and you'll see the only note that has a 7 in it is the 5 chord. So again, that rhyme that will work with the 5, and then you're right back to 1 where we started. So a 1, that's a 1 or a 4 chord. 2 can be harmonized only with a 5 chord. 3 can be harmonized with a 1 chord. The number 4 can be harmonized with either the 4 or the 5 chord. The 5 can be harmonized with the 1 or the 5 chord. The 6 can only be harmonized with the 4 chord, and the 7 can only be harmonized with the 5 chord. So these 3 chords have all of the notes that are in the diatonic scale. That's why it works. And generally, if all you wind up with is a melody like this, and I see here's a 5, then I know the chord either has to be a 1 chord, or a 5 chord. And since we're starting the song, I would assume it's a 1 chord, not a 5 chord. After a 1 chord, we want to have a 1 chord going on for a while, generally it's going to move to a different chord. And here, with that number 2, that's telling me I have no other choice but to play the 5 chord, because it's the only other chord that the number 2 is in. That's why there has to be a 5 chord there. Then you'll see 3, 2, and then it comes right back to the number 1, so again that's a 1 chord. Here there's a 3, so that's a 1 chord. But here we have a 5. Now, little things happening here. The only thing that harmonizes with the 5 chord is the 1 and the 5, and you see we have a 4 chord going on? It's because we're not trying to harmonize that note, we're trying to harmonize the note that's the longest one. It's being held. You see, and that happens to be a 4. See, so this melody moves to that 4 real quick, and we're not standing on that. So that's why they use the 4 chord there. But by the way, a 5 chord would have worked. It doesn't sound as cool, but it does work. All right. But then again, we come back to the number 5 here, which could be a 1 chord or a 5 chord. We have a 1 here, it can be a 1 chord or a 5 chord. Here's the number 2, it can only be a 5 chord. And here's the number 1, we're back to where we started. So the melody notes, if we just had a melody, that will hint to which one of these chords has to be harmonized.
So, do you have a way of remembering this stuff? But you know, I think
I don't have a mnemonic trick. I just use the numbers in the chord. I know 1 chord is 1, 3, 5, and the 5, 5. You know, I know how to spell these 3 chords. And when I see a melody, I go, oh, well, that'll go along.
Well, you see, I think that your system. I'm going to go back home and really talk up your system.
You'll see how nicely this works.
Because you see, what we're doing here with this number system fits in better with it. It just helps you sync with this stuff. And
especially when you're trying to figure out harmonies. You go, why is he using a B flat diminished chord? And then you look and you see, oh, well, look, there's a number 2 in there and a number 4. And the number 2 and 4 only work in that chord. You know, if you had something like a 2 and 7 in the melody, we're going 7, 2, 1, like that. Again, that 7 and 2 only work with the 5 chord.
That's very good.
So, okay. Another interesting thing about this, by the way, is these are all major chords. And the major chords are generating the major scale, right?
Right.
Let me show you one thing. You were talking to your teacher about what a minor is. Let me show you how that works. Turns out that if you do the same thing, but if I made these all minor chords, all right, here's my staff. And here again, I'm going to put it in G. There, there, and there, 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 and then going down. Now, in order to make this a minor chord, I have to flat the middle, right? So this is a 1, this is a 5, so I need a 3 flat to make this a minor chord. So there's my B flat now. Okay. Over here, this is a 5, 7, 2, 4. But to make this a minor chord, I have to flat that one. Right? So I have to flat this. So now I have a flatted, I have a 1, 2, I have a flatted 3, I have a 4, 5, and then down here, this is 4, 6, 1, and in order to make this a minor chord, I have to flat this. So now I wind up with a flat 6, 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 6, flat 7, and 1. So what's that? Flat 3, flat 6, flat 7 is the natural minor. It's the natural minor scale. And what we have here is a minor 1 chord, a minor 5 chord, and a minor 4 chord. So if I take those 4 chords and make them all minor, I have to adjust that note, which is the 6th. I have to adjust that note, which is the 3rd. And I have to adjust that note, which is the 7th of the scale. They're all the thirds of the chord are being minored. So we're taking
so E, F, G, I remember that. So that's the minor chord of G.
That's the minor scale, exactly. G minor. So what happens now is because all of these chords, all 3 of these chords, are now minor, that made the scale the 3rd, the 6th, and the 7th all minor. All those represent are the middle of each of those major chords. We call these primary chords, and then we're turning them into secondary chords,
right,
making them minor. We can do the opposite. We can take minor chords and push them up to major, of course. But this is what makes the major and the minor scale. Now, people think of the scale came first, and then harmony. But actually, the harmony came first, and then what happened? Now, here's another thing. Altered scales, or weird scales. You wonder how the guys get weird scales? All they're doing is making these weird chords. If I made this a diminished chord, right, I'd have to flatten the 5. So then I'd wind up with a flat 5 in the scale. Okay? So from flat 5 to flat 6 to flat 7 happens to be whole tones. And now we're starting to get what's called a diminished or an augmented scale. If I made this, oh yeah. But you see what I'm getting at?
Yeah.
If instead of being a minor chord, say I made that a diminished chord, that a diminished chord, and that a diminished chord, then what would happen is I'd wind up with double flats, and I'd get a diminished scale. If these were all augmented chords, I would wind up with what's called an augmented scale. And so the justification of whether a scale is a scale or not has to do with the harmony, not any pattern you can put together. And that's why these guys who have like 5,000 scales on their website, they have no harmonic justification for what they're doing, so I can't consider it a real scale. It's just some interval bullshit they're making up. It sounds interesting, and it's okay to do that. But you can't say it's a scale, because scales are based on harmonic overtones of these 3 primary chords. We have 4 types of chords: major, minor, augmented, diminished. And if I make these all major chords, I get a major scale. Make them all minor, I get a minor scale. If I make them all diminished, I get a diminished scale. If I make them all augmented, I get an augmented scale. It's just that simple. Now what happens when you get something like the harmonic minor or the melodic minor? How do we wind up with 3 different kinds of minor rather than natural minor? Well, in that case, what they're doing is they're making 2 of these chords minor. In the case of the harmonic minor, they're making 2 of these chords minor, but this one they're leaving major. And if they're leaving this one major, then I have to erase that 7. And what I would have is 1, 2, 3 flat, 4, 5, 6 flat, 7, 1. I'd have a normal 7 if this were major. That makes it a harmonic minor scale. Because it turns out if you make the 7 sharp instead of flat, then you wind up with the harmonic scale.
So tell me something. What's your read on like the bebop scale?
Well, again, that happens to be it's 2 minor chords. It's 2 minor chords and a dominant chord. So again, they're taking these 3 chords and they're modifying these chords to be something other than all major or all minor. They're mixing chords up.
So it's almost like 3 minors then.
It's 3 minors and a major. Yeah. It's 2 minors and a major. You're taking 2 minor chords, usually the tonic and the subdominant. You leave those minor. And then you make this one whatever you want. And what it does is it causes the 7th to be sharp, actually. So you wind up with what's called a sharp 7.
Oh.
And again, on our intervalometer, it's right here. The natural minor would be all the numbers. So let's do A minor here. You can see in A minor, it's the same as with C. C1 is A, B's 2, C, 4, 5. But if I want to play the harmonic minor, what I need to do is I need a G sharp. So I would wind up with what I call a red 7. So going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, red 7, 1 gives me the harmonic minor scale. Because I'm taking this chord and making it major instead of naturally minor flat. Instead of a flat 7, I'm making it what we call a red 7 or a sharp 7 in minor. And that's the harmonic minor scale. Now in the melodic minor scale, what they do is going up the scale, all of the chords, the 4th chord and the 5th chord are both major chords. You only have the minor chord, 1 chord, then the major 4 and major 5. So going up, this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sharp, 7 sharp, 1. And then coming down, I would use the natural flat 7, the natural flat 6, 5. So going up the scale, the 6 and the 7 are both sharpened, so I'm using major chords. But coming down, I revert to the minor chords to fall down. So you're actually using 2 different chords depending on the direction you're moving.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, see. Now, so is that your invention?
Yes.
Did you patent it and stuff?
This is copyrighted and trademarked. And copyright isn't enough, I found out. You can copyright something, and if you don't manufacture it within 2 years of the time that you copyright it, then anyone else can steal the copyright. The copyright laws have been changed to allow people with money to steal. And but trademarks and international trademarks are really solid. And if you try to screw with someone's trademark, you're in deep doo-doo. And it's international, it's not just American. Because you can get an American copyright and someone in Europe can steal your stuff. But if you get a trademark, that's worldwide. So I trademarked this. That's why under the, somewhere here on my slider, I have a little TM. I don't have it on here. But on the new ones, it's 1999 yet. On the newer ones, it says TM, trademark. So that's my trademark.
Very good.
And it turns out people are stealing this. I've been seeing guitar charts now where they're showing all the scales, and they're showing this with this color code there to show all the scales lined up underneath the numbers. And now they're trying to show the relationship between the ABCs and the numbers, and all the new charts that are coming out all have my slider on them because they've been stealing it off the internet. They don't know that I trademarked it. So I'm letting them publish so I can then hit them with a letter saying you owe me money. And they'll be pretty shocked to find out that I took the time to trademark this 15 years ago. So, yeah.
Very good.
But again, like if I want to do C minor, let's say we're over here to C, all right, and I look at the flats here. You see what happens is here's C, there's your D, and then all of a sudden I've got the E flat. See, so that's my flat chord. 1, 3, flat 5. That's a minor chord, obviously. Then 4 is F. 5 is G, and then right here we have A flat with the 6th chord. So there's my minor chord, middle of my minor 4 chord. The middle of my 5 chord would be B flat. So that's my minor 7th, and then there's 1. So there's you got your flat 3, your flat 6, and your flat 7. That's how you wind up getting a natural minor scale. If I wanted to play harmonic, I just wouldn't play the B flat. I would play the red point, which is the B. And then I have what's called a harmonic minor scale. You can hear these things on the piano when you see it visually. It's quite lovely. And the melodic minor would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, red 6, red 7 going up, and then 1, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 natural coming down. So what they do is as you're going up the scale, the dominant and the subdominant chord are raised to be major, and you only have the natural minor chord. And then when you're coming down, they're all minor. So in one direction, we only have the 1 chord as minor, and the other 2 are still major. But coming down, we make them all minor, because as you're falling down, your ear wants to stretch further. And when you're moving up, it takes energy, so it's easier to think of them as major chords. And then when you're falling down, your ear tends to collapse into the bass, so we think of it as flat. And that's why nobody improvises using the melodic minor scale. The only one that ever improvised in the melodic minor was Bach. He could improvise in the scale easily. He wrote so many things using the melodic minor that he made it popular. And
so the melodic minor is different going up than going down.
that's right. You're using only one minor chord and two major chords as you're moving up the scale, but they all collapse to minor chords as you're falling down. So it's unnatural going up and natural coming down, or I like to refer to it as hot going up, the red, hot going up, but cold coming down. So you go up hot and you come down cold. And it's got an interesting effect. I think one of the first things he wrote was ba-da-dum, 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 ba-da-da-da-da-da. That's natural.
So melodic natural is, so tell me again now, it's like...
So melodic minor, what you have
Melodic
is two
minor.
different things. Now, I'll put it on the back of this paper for you. You have it going up, and you have it coming down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's split this in half. Okay? So, what we have is 1, flat 3, 5, and then a normal 5 chord, 5, 7, 2, 4, and then 1, 6, 4. So going up the scale, we have a minor, minor, and this are major. So the 1 chord is minor, and the 5 chord and the 4 chord are major, going up, going up. But when we come down, then we have that becomes minor, and then this becomes minor, and then this. Alright, so going up I only have a 3 flat, everything else is normal. But when I come down, I have a 7 flat, a 3 flat, and a 6 flat when I come down. So then this is minor, this is minor, and this is minor. Down. Only. This is minor, this is major, this is major, up. Only. See that one. If I'm going up the scale, I'm going to use only a flat 3. Yes, melodic minor. It's the hardest one to improvise with because you have two different sets of chords. You have one set of chords as you're going up and a different set of chords as you're coming down. And you'll see sometimes in songs the 5 chord changing from a major to a minor 5 chord a lot. And when it's shimmering back and forth like that, one case it's a normal 6, and then you see a flat 6, or you see a normal 7 and a flat 7. It's usually melodic minor. That's what's happening. And anything that's melodic minor, that's what's. So again, you see, I can justify the scale from the chords, from the point of view of the chords. The chords are what create the scale, not the other way around. And in Abersol, they show you the scale, and then they say every other one, and you've got the chords, right? So they're actually giving you the wrong impression. They're walking around with the handle, and they say, then we invented the pot. No. The pot came first. The chords came first. People are experimenting with harmonizations, and they were trying to figure out how to write scales that harmonized with those chords. And then these scales evolved. And that is why there's 3 different kinds of minor, because there's 3 things we can do with the chords, 3 different ways we can treat the chords. In major, there's only one way to deal with it. We just have all major chords, there's nothing we can do, so it's kind of fixed. But the melodic minor is changing, depending on the direction you're moving. This is really important. Direction is, for composers, direction becomes very important. My teacher, Ben, he stopped writing in keys. He got tired of dealing with the idea of keys. He wrote everything in the key of C, basically. And what he did is whenever he was going up the scale, if he wanted to change something, he would flatten it. I mean, he would sharpen it if he was going up the scale, and if he turned around and came right back down, wanted the same note, he would write it in as a flat. So his basic rule was everything was in the key of C, but if I'm going to go up, I'm going to sharpen things, and if I'm going to come down, I'm going to flatten them. And that simplified things so much. His scores are so easy to read, you know, because you don't have to worry about all these sharps and these global sharps and flats that are floating around in your head. So it's very simple. You write everything in the key of C, no matter what key it is, and if the note goes higher than a note in C, you sharpen it. If it goes below a note that's in C, you flatten it. And that just makes the whole process a whole lot easier. But then you can't tell what key a song is in until you're in the middle of it. But that's okay. I mean,
so what was he saying then? He writes in the key of C, and then if the note is
say it's a C sharp, right?
Yeah.
If it's higher than C, he would call it a sharp. But if he was coming down the scale, he would call it D flat. See, depended on the direction he was going as to which one he called it.
Okay, I got it.
So C sharp or D flat doesn't matter.
I've noticed that.
But if he's going like B, C, C sharp, D.
You're talking about writing it on the music.
Yes,
paper.
exactly.
Okay, I've seen that.
Just writing it on the paper, and it makes a huge simplification. But you can't tell what key something's in until you're into it.
Right. Because
everything's written in C. It became a great simplification that his more advanced works, his last, the symphony that he wrote, the last symphony he wrote, is just a dream to read. And anyone who's a conductor, you know, conductors usually have 25 staffs they're looking at, and they're all in different keys depending on which instrument, you know, and you've got to do this translation in your head. On his scores, you don't have to as a conductor. Everything's written out in C, and then the parts are just written out in the key they need for the orchestra. So the conductor just looks at something that's written in the key of C, and he's got all the staffs are the same. It makes his job a lot easier, and you just expect the people to do their job and transpose.
Now this is a little song like Over the Rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
I've been puttering around with this, trying to make it.
Well, the middle section you're screwing up because there's a sharp in there. See?
Oh.
Yeah, see, there's a sharp in there, and people screw that up.
Where? Oh, you mean the G? There's
yeah,
a G.
It goes. Then it goes 4 sharp. 6.
Oh, here it is, right here. Oh, that's a C sharp. That's a C sharp right there. But what I'm trying to say is, how would you improvise? You know, I got all the keys. I see the keys. I mean, I see the chords there.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you? So I was thinking like.
I have it here somewhere. Written out in generic code somewhere here. But yeah, it uses all the normal notes except in that center section where it goes 4 sharp 6, 4 sharp 6, and then again what's happening there is that chord is being altered, and instead of the minor chord, minor 2, it's using the major 2 chord.
So what is all this here?
These are little notes from lessons I've done before. Here's a complete history of the blues that I did when I was in college. These are every scale that exists. I know I have to do a mostly rock and roll. But I did Over the Rainbow and Oh Danny Boy, because those guys are popular. There's Gentle Breezes.
You know, I wrote down those names of those two fellows who do that extemporaneous singing. That is really going to help one of the music teachers I know. Because he wants to go out and do solo kind of performances.
Mm-hmm.
That is really going to help him.
There. Remember we did Over the Rainbow in, I think it was my bluegrass. Danny Boy. Shove that pig's foot closer to the fire. Four-leaf clover. I had a bluegrass band called Sweet Blue, and we only played songs that had the word blue in them. So we played like Blue Skies and Blue Monk and Blue Moon and Mood Indigo. Angel, looking for our version of Over the Rainbow. We have a numbered version of it somewhere. But I had it in here with Sweet Blue. Let's see, it's Blue Sky.
I have to think about that one.
Irving Berlin, Lock Woman. We'll see if we got. I'm going to have to sort through some things to find it for you, but I have it written out in generic. And again, you can play it in any key you want, and then it has all the chords worked out a little bit simpler than in these books. Most of these books are making it too complicated. So I just broke it down to the 1, 4, and 5 chord. I don't know where it is for the moment. So you can look at Danny Boy here, you'll see that Danny Boy starts with a low 7, and it goes all the way up to a high 3. So it's actually about an octave and a half wide.
So all these people, these different people I know, they're kind of joke something.
Well, it's so simple, and you know, and that's the thing is that these people get indoctrinated in something, and it's like the Catholic versus the Jews or something. You know, it's like, well, don't you want to grow up to be a pope? I go, well, no, I don't want to be a pope. I'm Jewish. We don't have popes. So, but Pope's as high as you can go. Jesus Christ, do you want to be something better than a Pope? And then you say, well, Jesus was a Jew.
Thank you. Thank you.
Where should I put the original?
Oh, that? I don't know. Where do you think we should store it something we can get our fingers on it right away? Put it in your big box there. These are show tunes. Then that's 5, 5. Now, 4 sharp 6, 4 sharp 6, and you see it's using the 2 major chords. Then 7. Then a high 2. That's it, and then 6. Right, then back down to 6. Your chords, so we start out here in F, but it'll be some, and then you do a 3 chord, over the rainbow, then a 4 chord, way, and this would be B, way up, there's a 4 chord, because there's a 4, 4, 4, back to a 1 chord, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's your 2, 7. So can only harmonize with the 5 chord. 2, 7, 1, 2, 3, 1. Back to a 1 chord. 1 chord, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 5, 3, 4, 5. Now when we're doing 4, 5, you'll see it's a 2 minor chord with followed by a 5. But later, that same pattern goes to a 4 sharp because the 2 chord needs to have the middle note, which is flat and raised to a major chord. So now it becomes a 2 major chord instead of the 2 minor. So now you've got a 4 sharp 6, 4 sharp 6. And instead of a 5 chord, it becomes a 7 chord. And then it just goes on as normal.
So how does this help you improvise?
Well, I can see these chords, and again I know in 3, 5, and 7. So I could use a 3, 5, or 7 here. I don't need to use that 7. And so by laying out the chords, for instance, here I have a 1, a 3, and a 5. So I can actually start out any one of those numbers if I want to improvise. I don't have to go 1, 1. We do that so people know it's over the rainbow. Then here, doing this thing, I can have a 3, a 5, or a 7. Any one of those notes. So let's say I started on 5 and I just walked to 7. That would work for that whole measure there. Then over here, doing this measure, I have a 4 chord, which is 4, 6, and 1. So again, those notes any of those notes I could play during this thing. And then move to something, again, a 1, a 3, and a 5. So let's say, let's see, where are we?
See, that's where that numbering system you have works in system, huh?
Yeah, so instead of going 1, I could start on 3. I go 3, 3, 3, 5, 7, 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. I could play that during that passage because I'm just grabbing those. And again, that's why I memorize the circle thirds. It's memorized in my head. So the minute I see something like a 4, I know it's 4, 6, 1. So I have all those notes, 4, 6, 1, 4, 6, 1, 3 if I want to take it to a 4th, to a 7 chord. So I can play during a 4 chord, 4, 6, 1, or 3, any of those notes. During a 2 chord, if it's a 2 major chord, it has to be 2, 4 sharp, 6, and 1. And again, I'm taking that circle of thirds, and I'm just spelling from whatever the name of the thing is. Yeah, 1, 3, 5, 7, 2, 4, 6. So if it's a 3 chord, it's going to be 3, 5, 7. If it's a jazz chord, it'll be 3, 5, 7, 2. They always use 4 note chords for jazz. If I wanted this 3 chord to be a jazz chord, 3, 5, 7, I could add a 2 in there, and then it would be jazz. They always use 4 note chords. So I could turn this into a jazz piece by making that, instead of C, I could make that the C7. So instead of playing this, like that.
So that would be a major 7.
Yeah, so see, this is a C, but if I add the major 7th, I get, now doesn't that sound jazzier? So what I've done is I just changed one note. I added the major 7th in there. And that gives me that, a B7 with a 7th in it, an E7, to an A7. And so I play a lot of 7th chords, and then every now and then I'll play a major chord to kind of calm things down, and then play a lot of 7th chords. So there again, so this, you're playing it in G on your, which means you're in F.
Right.
So if this were an F chord, right, and then what's up from F? You got G and A, right? So that would be an A minor chord, right?
Right.
And then the 4 would be above A is what? B. So that would be a B major chord. And then here you'd be back to your F chord. So that's the way I would see it. So for you, that's right, I would write out the F scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, back to F. Now in the F scale, we know there's a B flat. Okay? So now my 1 chord is going to be F. My 3 chord here is going to be A minor, or my 2 chord is going to be G minor. My 4 chord here would be a B flat chord. My 5 chord would be a C7, because we make the 5 the 7th chord. The D chord now becomes my 6th chord. 6th chord, and it's usually also minor. And then the E chord here is my 7th chord, usually a diminished chord or half diminished chord, and then we're right back to 1 again. So the way I would see this is that would be F, that would be A minor, then I go to B flat, then back to F, and then that would be B flat, back to F, and then C, and then back to F.
So the nice thing, well, the thing is,
you
go
play in G,
and I play in G.
And the piano player plays an F,
Right.
and you guys are on the same page.
Right.
And what you do is you play through with the melody, and then as you go back, try not playing the melody notes, just try playing notes that are in the chord. And just grab one note in the chord and hold it for the whole thing. And then grab the next note that's in the chord and hold it. You'll see that you'll fit, and you can start playing anything. Then what you do is, the next time around, instead of one note through the whole chord, play the first note, and then add anything else you want. So what I would do is I'd go, da, 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 da. Then the next next time around I go da 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 and play a second note, right? And then the next time through, play 3 notes or 4 notes. So you keep it simple, and then each time add an extra layer, and you'll find that you'll be able to play through those songs and improvise your own stuff pretty easily. Now, all you need to do to get really good at what you're doing is play in the key of G, so you've got one key that you're playing and that you're comfortable with, right? And then grab that Mr. Natural Songbook and play through all those melodies in order. And if you can get through that whole book, there's only like 27 songs in there, you can get through that whole book in a month, easily. And you should be able, and then go back and find a couple songs that you really like, and work on them and work them up till they're really smooth, and you can get loud or soft, and you can play them with emotion. And then get some guy who can play piano, or if you've got band in the box, just remember to work out the chord progression for band in the box, and then set it for the key of F. And then you can play along. As a matter of fact, you can type anything in band in the box, in whatever key it's in. Let's say it's in E flat, and type it all in E flat. Then tell band in the box to change it to F, and band in the box will change the entire chord progression into the key of F for you. It does it like an instant translation. All right? And send me an email with your wife, some pictures.
Sure.
I'd like to see your wife's art. Celia?
Thank you.
Walter Celia.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, Walter lives up in Washington.
Oh,
Up there, my daughter lives. My daughter goes to school in Seattle.
Uh-huh.
Well, actually, she's closer to Tacoma, isn't she?
Kenmore.
Where is it?
Kenmore.
Kenmore. Wherever the hell that is. Up in
Near Seattle.
It's closer to Seattle, isn't it? Yeah.
She
So
goes
yeah.
to Bastyr University.
Well, she's here right now. She's here. Well, she's not here.
She's in the city.
She's Dog City.
She's going back to.
She'll be going back at the end of this month, I guess.
At the end of September.
September?
It's like September 19th or something.